So I'm going to do a quick tutorial showing you how I make my glitter pens. These are the Papermate Inkjoy pens that I purchased packs of these from Walmart. You can also find them at Target, Amazon, basically anywhere that sells Papermate pens. So this is what the pen looks like before I've done any alterations or anything to it. So real quick, what you need to do with this once you get it, it's very simple. Take the bottom, it unscrews. Take, as I like to say it, all the guts out of it. And just use this dowel rod to, there. So there's all the pieces, set that to the side and keep a hold of it. Then this little clip, the easiest way I have found to deal with this is you can do this multiple ways. You can take a pair of pliers and twist it. Usually normally I can't find pliers, so they're somewhere, but not where they're supposed to be. So I usually just take the edge and just start twisting. So it's plastic and it's going to snap off. So you just keep going till you snap it off. Then, if you can see here, I have a little bit of plastic sticking up here, and then there's a few raised places. So I just take it out to my garage and run a Dremel over it and sand that down and make it flat. So that's what I do for my pens to get them ready to start using. So that's the first part of my prep. And then I'm not going to use this just yet, so I'm going to put all my pen guts back inside of it so that I don't lose them. So after I get the tab, after I get this little piece removed, and I go over it with the Dremel and sand these pieces down so they're flush with the rest of the pen, I just use a sanding block and sand it real good so that I can finish doing my prep work. So I sand it, wipe it down with alcohol, and then I put it on the end of, these are 1/4-inch dowel rods. I think I picked them up probably at the 99-cent store, and shove that on there and do my spray paint. Okay, so after I get everything, I get it prepped, I have my base coat of paint, then I'm ready to start my first layer of epoxy. I used to use, the first ones I tried, I used the regular, I have DIY counterculture, and I have KS resin. Anyway, I use my regular epoxy that I use for tumblers. But I was online one day and I found another crafter that turned me to this. This is the brand she uses, and it's a UV curable resin. And I really, after trying both of them, this is by far, I think, the best option. So this brand is the one I've had pretty good success with. I've tried a few others and they were okay, but I will stick with this one. So anyway, first thing I'm going to do is put a thin coat of epoxy on all over this pen. Now I don't want it to be very thick, it needs to stay thin. And just make sure and get right there on the end. Now when you go to put your glitter on, you're going to get the best coverage with like the fine or ultra fine glitter. It seems to work well on the pens. You don't have a lot of surface to mess with. So I'm going to take that off because I have to feel what I'm doing here. But I like to do a little bit of see if I can hold this and do it at the same time. I like to do a little bit of chunky. Not very much, but just enough to kind of break it up a little bit. And the reason I don't like very much is because it, you know, if you get too much, it's hard to cover, and it's really, it can be difficult to try to keep your pen from getting, that wasn't very graceful. It can be difficult to keep your pen from getting really, really thick. So for me, I try to add the least amount of epoxy that I can so that I don't end up with a giant log for a pen. I don't want to write with a log. So, all right, so I put a little bit of the chunky, and then I'm just going to go over it with some, this is a holographic medium cut, so it's not real fine. Now the first one I was using, I don't have any idea what that is. I bought it on AliExpress, so I couldn't tell you what it was called, but I really like it. And this is Bibbidi Bobbidi Blue from the Glitter Guy. Now, I am not a glitter snob. I will buy glitter from anyone that has what I like. But I tend to, if I'm going to buy it from, you know, a small business, I kind of tend to stay, most of my glitters either come from the Glitter Guy, or, I don't have one sitting here, there's one, or the Glitter Chimp. So that's usually where I buy them. All right, now that I got that done, and I will take this and just kind of roll it. Just kind of smash it in there. Then, this is not the right one. This is what I use to set my epoxy. And this is a Dulex. And again, this is something that was recommended by another crafter. And I have this one, and I bought this one, Ultra Fire, when the first one was out of stock. I bought it on Amazon. And I personally think that, and I know they look exactly the same, but I personally think this one does a better job at curing the epoxy. So what I'll do is just run this UV light over top of my glitter. Now, if I were doing very many of these at a time, I probably would, you know, figure out a way. There are ways that I've done this, that I've attached it to my cup turner and put one of my nail, I do my own nails at home. I would put one of my gel curing lamps over top of it. That way I could get more of them going at the same time. But I would still do this part even without, you know, without that turner and trying to do a bunch of them at a time. I still would at least do this part of it one at a time like this. And I don't like to waste my glitter, so. All right. Now I will go ahead and, yeah, that's nice, and I'll go ahead and just kind of, you know, brush off any excess if I have any. Got a little piece of fuzz there. Okay, so next layer. Usually put one line here, one line across the bottom, and then just start turning because it will fall off. And then I start from the middle and kind of work my way out. And then I just go up and down the pen. And you don't have to do this. You can take as many layers as you need. And I think that if you are going to be, especially using the UV resin, you want to get a nice good cure on it. So it's better to take it slow and do thin multiple coats than to try to do one super thick coat and you end up with just a giant mess. Or it doesn't want to cure because it's too thick and you can't seem to get that UV light all the way through it. Okay, so now I'm just going to hit it with that light. And again, this isn't my technique. I didn't invent this. I just saw another crafter doing it, and she was kind enough to share exactly how she does it and also the materials she uses and where you get them. Good enough. So we'll give it one more coat. And we're just trying to seal in all that glitter without it getting too heavy. It's nice and sunny out and I have more than one of these to do, I will actually take them outside and just stick the dowel rod down in one of my planters and just let the sun bake it a little bit. But it's rainy and nasty here in Houston today, so it is definitely indoor UV lights. So I'm going to show you how I do my sanding. We could spend all day sanding by hand, but I find it easier to use the drill. I just have a 1/4 inch dowel rod, and I got some tape on. I have some tape on here to grip the pen a little bit better, and then I'm just going to if I have some places you can see where it, you know, especially because I use the chunky glitter, where it was raised more or a little more uneven. I have no idea what the number is on this. It just says coarse. Really seems to help. When I pull it off of there, I will, if I need a few little places, like right here at the end, I'll go ahead and I've got a little bit of epoxy buildup right there. I'll go ahead and cut that out. And I'll wipe it down with alcohol, get that residue off. And I have one of these lint-free cloths that I got from probably Sally Beauty, the nail supply place. So I'll just wipe it down one more time with this, and this won't leave any lint that I could have gotten from the paper towel. So I'll move that out of the way. I want to make sure and get that dust off of my hands. And once it's completely dry, I'm going to give one more thin layer. I have found that if I try to put my vinyl on the pen right after I've sanded it, it doesn't want to lay very well. I get lifting, especially where it's going around the curve. So I go ahead and do one more thin layer, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I really just want to get a nice even coat. Just to fill in all those, you know, all those bumps from sanding. And then even if you realize that there's, you know, one section that's a little bit bumpier than the other, you know, that's, for this part, it's not that big of a deal, because you're gonna, once you put your decal on, if you're putting a decal on, once you do that, then, you know, you can hit it with thicker layers of epoxy and get it evened out. The biggest thing is to get a layer of epoxy on it so that I can put my vinyl down. So like I said, if I was going to do, you know, a bunch of these, I would probably, you know, do my base layer with this light, and then I would hook them up to a pen turner or rig something up with my cup turner and set a UV nail light over top of it, and then just let them spin. So I am going to do a reverse weeding. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I have this little tiny dot in her name above the eye, and I think it'll just be easier. I went ahead, while I was waiting for that other thing for it to cure, I went ahead and took the little centers out of the letters. So there's a little scraper. And I've used this transfer tape way too many times, so it's not wanting to stick as well as it should, but that's the solution. All right, so then to do reverse weeding, I am going to take my white, and now I'm going to start peeling it back. And I should be left with, see, this is why I did it. That little dot right there was wanting, I was about to lose that. Oops. it might be easier to do it this way and not lose my little dot. Okay, so there is her letter, Giselle. A new piece of paper down here to work with. Now I'm going to try to find a nice even place. This looks good. All right. So now I'm just going to line this up. And you can line this however you want. I prefer to have mine reading from the bottom. I prefer to do mine going this direction, but that could be because I'm right-handed. Don't really know. I'm just going to put this on here, kind of rub it a little bit, heat up that adhesive. I think the center of the S got left behind. It did. Okay, there. So I'm just going to heat that. I don't like sticking my fingers on it. So just kind of press that real good. And let it use the heat from my hand. Then you can take a look at it and see if it's popping up anywhere. If it doesn't seem to be lifting, you're probably good to go. So what I do once I get that on there, I'm going to put a really, really thin coat of epoxy right over the name. And I just want to make sure that I keep it down. Hit it quick. And I will show you when I take this light off of it. I don't have anything that's lifted. It took a few times of me doing this before I figured this one out. Okay, so if you can see this, see the edges. I don't have any lifting at all. All right, so now, most likely next to last step will be a good layer of epoxy. I will probably have to sand it because it's a little, especially with the chunky glitter. Definitely gonna have to do some sanding. I have some little lumping down here at the bottom, and I've got a little bit of lumping right here. A couple minutes in my PhoneSoap. So I have another UV light that I use to sanitize like my iPads, everybody's phones, anything. So it's big enough that it will fit an iPad Pro, the big one, the like 12.9 inch one, the phones, remotes, basically just about anything you can stick in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what that PhoneSoap is. So this is my PhoneSoap, and I use this to sanitize like my iPads and those things. So I have this little, as silly as this thing looks, I have it rigged up in here. So this is just a jar of KT tape with a pen grip on top. So I stick that inside and it grips right on there. And I just shove it back inside and shut the door, and then it does the sanitizing. So this seems to do a really nice job curing that epoxy. Okay, so a few minutes in the PhoneSoap, and actually the texture's not that bad, but I'm a little on the picky side, and I know I've got one spot there, and really I could clean up a little bit here at the end. So that's what I'm gonna do. And you can see where, you know, where it's uneven. Doesn't have to be perfect because I am gonna fill that in. So you can see I've got a few little spots where it's not completely even, but actually it doesn't feel too bad. Wipe it down with alcohol. More even than what it was. All right. Kind of start from the middle and work my way out. Make sure that's covered in case I sanded any of it. Just kind of turn it a little bit. If there's anywhere, I still got a little tiny divot right there. Well, I'm going to turn it and let it, I may need to help it a little bit. After I give this one last hit with this light, I'm going to put it back in the PhoneSoap for, I think it's like a 3 or 4 minute cycle, however long it is. It's only a few minutes. And then it should be completely done, and I will show you the finished product coming up. All right, I got a little buildup right here along the edge. That didn't go all the way in. So I'm going to clean that up with a knife. Got a little bit of... Ah, right there it is. Yeah, just going to clean that up. All right, let's try this one more time. Hopefully the clicker works better now. Perfect. So I just had a little bit of epoxy build up right there on the edge, so just take your X-Acto knife and trim a little bit. And that's it. It is now completely finished and it's dry and ready to go. And this particular pen is a gift, so I think that one would match nicely. So I'm going to use this little box. And I will link the I'll link the place where you can get the boxes. And it fits. Perfect.